Good evening, friends. I want to welcome you to Grandpa John's Storytime. Now, most of the stories that you will hear will be from the two books that I wrote called Come Walk With Me. But tonight I thought it would be interesting if you could learn maybe a little bit more about me from somebody else's point of view. When I retired from teaching in 1997, I took early retirement. They had a retirement party for me, and my son Lanny and my daughter Leanne got together with my wife Marg, and they made a list of some of the things that they remember that I have done in my life. So I'm going to go through that list. Occasionally I may pause and elaborate a little bit, but I think probably if you know a little bit of my background, some of the stories may have more meaning for you. Just to start out with, I have a picture to show you. The three boys, there were actually four of us in the family, but Stanley was the oldest boy with the dark hair. I came next with the blonde hair on the opposite side, and my youngest brother Walter, we used to call him Shorty, and we still do call him Shorty, because he was the shortest of the three of us. Now, how short is Shorty? Well, he's probably only about a half an inch shorter than what Stan and I were. I'm 6'2". Stan was a little bit shorter than that. He passed away in 1988. And my younger brother Walter, or Shorty, is just a tiny bit shorter than I am. Okay, and then Louise came along a few years later, so she's the youngest of the family. So some of the background. Like I say, the three other family members got together, and they came up with this little list of what Dad was like, what he did. So my dad, John Walter Maslicki, was born on December 19th, 1945, and he has, in his life, done the following things. He has circled the globe. Yes, we did. Marg and I circled the globe backpacking back in 1972, 73, 4, 5, and then we went back to Calgary in 1976, worked for a while, left again on another backpacking tour. We landed in London and backpacked across Europe and Asia, landing in Singapore and then flying over to Australia. So, yes, I have circled the globe. I have gone skydiving. Yes, I did that just before I reached the age of 50. Once, and only once, and I guess that was enough to say that I did it. Dad taught at Knighton Central School for 20 years. He raised two kids, Lanny and Leanne. He achieved both his Bachelor of Education from the University of Calgary and his Master's of Education from the University of Alberta. And just as a point of interest, at the University of Alberta, when I was working on my Master's, I had a lot of analysis to do in my thesis, and we had one computer on campus, and it was inside a large room, almost like a gymnasium, and it was operated with tubes. The tubes that would get hot in your hand would light up and so on. And I used to collect all of my data and put it on reading cards, punch it out into punch cards. And at the end of the day, I would take it to the computing science building and turn it over to them. And then sometime through the night, they would run my data through the machine. Next morning, I would pick it up. Now, if it ran into a mistake anywhere in those, and I think at that time I probably had about 650 punch cards, if it ran into a mistake in any one of those, it would reject the whole thing, and I would pick it up next morning, and then I would have to find out what the mistake was that day, go through, fix the mistake, and whichever punch card had the mistake. Actually, it was the first punch card that it came to that had a mistake is where it would stop. So then I would go back and correct it, take it back at the end of the day. Overnight it would be processed. Next morning I would pick it up. If it came to another mistake, it would stop there. I would pick it up, take it back to my office, and start all over again. So that was the first computer that I used, and it was the only computer on the University of Alberta campus at that time in 1969-70. Okay, Dad has also taken his Silverwing, his Honda Silverwing, down to San Francisco on a 6,600-kilometer round trip, and I did that solo. A little bit like a cowboy of the Old West. I went alone and I slept under the stars at night. I had a tent with me, but I didn't set the tent up unless it was raining. So that was a bit of an adventure, and I was 50 years old at the time. Dad has been able to fix almost anything that is brought to him. With the help of his wife Marg, friends and neighbors, they built a homestead in the middle of the bush. Dad has gone whitewater rafting. He has climbed Tunnel Mountain in Banff and Ayers Rock in Australia. And in fact, in Australia, we climbed Ayers Rock twice, but you're no longer able to do that because the Aborigines consider that to be a sacred rock, and no one is allowed to climb it anymore. Dad has backpacked across Europe and Asia. He held the title of vice principal at Knighton Central School. He has been a distinguished firefighter and first responder for the Knighton Volunteer Fire Department. He had jobs or other occupations including babysitter, cook, bottle washer, rock picker, well digger, ice cream man, meat cutter. I worked at Canada Packers on the night shift. Construction worker, a mailman, teacher, vice principal, world traveler, a hiker, a mountain climber, camper, a football player. I used to play football for the University of Calgary Dinosaurs back when I was going to university. He's been a first aid guy, volunteer. He's done fencing. He was a shingler. He was a fireman. Dad was a poet, a skier, a whitewater rafter, a computer guy, a skydiver, a mechanic, a house builder, a logger, a camel rider. Yes, Marg and I rode camels when we were in Australia. He was a repair guy, a gardener, a farmer, a fisherman, a financial consultant, a video camera guy, a writer, a snorkeler, a biker, salesman, a garage sailor, an auctioneer, an auction goer, a school bus driver, a field trip guy for school, a counselor, a tax return guy, a high wire hookup guy. And when I was hooking up the first cable receiving tower that was to receive a signal from Calgary, and we were setting up the signal so that a local city could pick up the signal from Calgary, that tower was a little over 60 feet high and about 120 feet wide, and I was the only guy working on it at the time. You wouldn't get away with that nowadays, but in those days that's what I was. And I remember I was working near the top of the tower, tightening up all of the wires, and all of a sudden I heard pang, and then another pang, and another pang. The guy wires were starting to let loose, and the whole tower started swaying. I came down off that 60-foot tower very quickly, let me tell you. I had started on that job part way through, and the people that were on the job before me didn't weld shut the eye bolts on all of the turnbuckles. And so as I started tightening up the wires, the turnbuckles opened up, the eye opened up, and they let go. And suddenly there was less holding the tower together. That was a bit of a sensation, let me tell you. Dad has also been a sound system guy, an electrician, a plumber, a propane converter. What else have we got here? A nice guy, a welder, a sawmill operator, a large machinery operator, a sheep shearer, a dam building, and if there was anything else that I left out, oh yes, and a teacher of all of the above things. So those are some of the things that I've done in my life, and now you have a little bit of background as to where I have my experiences for the stories that I write. Most of the stories that I will be reading to you took place between probably about 2008 and last year, when I had my second book published. Okay, I just want to make one observation from today. I did go shopping for some friends that are shut-ins and to get some groceries and medications. And I did notice today, this is the first day now in a little over a week, that when I went shopping, there was no pushing, no shoving. Everybody was quite calm. And without exception, almost everyone was smiling. So I think that we finally are over the first bit of fear, and we're slowly learning to cope with what is in front of us. And together, we will get through this. I hope you all have a lovely evening. Good night.